Got it. You want a full part one, written in third person, in simple English, interesting and engaging, violence-free, and with around 1,600 words. Since you haven't given a new safe title, I'll base it on a safe HFY sci-fi story about an alien learning about humans, inspired by your previous title idea. Here, the premise I'll use for part one. Premise: a curious young alien girl named Lyra arrives at a human colony for the first time. She is fascinated by human behavior and wants to understand human emotions, customs, and ways of interacting. She observes humans, asks questions, and slowly begins to learn about friendship, trust, and connection in a nonviolent, wholesome way. I'll start writing part one now. Since this will be long tilde 1,600 words, I'll craft it in a single, continuous narrative. Here's part one of your story, written in third person, simple English, engaging and fully safe. Lyra hovered near the edge of the human settlement, her bright, translucent wings catching the sunlight in delicate flashes. The world beneath her was unlike any she had imagined. Shimmering towers of glass rose above fields of strange green grass, and humans moved through the streets with a rhythm that both puzzled and fascinated her. Her large, violet eyes scanned every detail. Their hands, the way they smiled, the sounds they made. It all seemed like a carefully choreographed dance she had only glimpsed from afar. For most of her life, Lyra had lived on the orbiting station of Zareth Prime, a place filled with precise calculations and carefully monitored experiments. The humans were a mystery to her people. Stories painted them as chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable. Yet somehow, there was a charm in that unpredictability. It made them alive. And Lyra wanted to know what alive truly meant in the human sense. She landed softly on a walkway, her feet barely making a sound on the smooth surface. Around her, humans passed by, some smiling at one another, others talking loudly in small groups. Lyra tilted her head, trying to imitate their posture. Her first attempt ended in wobbling slightly, and she quickly steadied herself. Humans did not seem to notice, or if they did, they simply ignored her. This amused her. On Zareth Prime, every minor deviation would have triggered a notification. One human, a young girl about Lyra's own age, laughed and ran past with a small device in her hand. Lyra's curiosity spiked. What was the device? How did it work? But more importantly, what was the source of laughter? She approached cautiously, keeping a respectful distance, and observed the girl closely. The girl noticed her at the last moment and froze, her eyes wide. For a moment, Lyra wondered if she had frightened her. Then the girl's face relaxed into a smile and she held out the device. "It's a camera," the girl said, her voice soft but excited. "You can take pictures with it. Do you want to try?" Lyra hesitated. The concept of capturing a moment was foreign to her. Time, to her people, was tracked in precise cycles and recorded in data streams, not in images. Still, the girl's enthusiasm was infectious. With a small nod, Lyra extended a slender hand. The device felt strange, almost alive as she touched it. The girl guided her fingers, explaining how to press the button. When Lyra finally clicked it, the world froze for a heartbeat in a bright flash. The girl laughed again. "See, you just captured that moment. Now you can remember it forever." Lyra tilted her head, fascinated. Remembering a moment without storing it in a memory grid, it seemed inefficient, yet beautiful in its imperfection. She smiled, and in that instant she felt a small thrill of understanding, a spark of connection to these humans. Over the next few days, Lyra spent hours wandering through the settlement. She observed humans preparing meals, sharing stories, and playing games she could not yet understand. There was a strange warmth in the way they moved, the way they laughed, and even the way they argued. Arguments did not lead to destruction. They led to compromise, sometimes laughter, sometimes tears, but always growth. One afternoon, Lyra sat in the park, watching humans toss a small spherical object back and forth. A young boy ran past, kicking the ball toward a group of children. They cheered and clapped, encouraging one another. Lyra's curiosity overcame her hesitation. She asked, "Why do you do that?" The children paused and looked at her. One girl with a bright red ribbon in her hair stepped forward. "It's a game. We run, we throw, we catch, and sometimes we try to trick each other. But it's fun." Lyra repeated the motion of throwing the ball carefully, following the girl's instructions. At first she missed, sending the ball into a nearby fountain. The children laughed, not cruelly but with delight. The laughter was warm and inclusive, not mocking. Lyra tried again and again, each attempt improving slightly. By the end of the afternoon, she could toss the ball accurately enough to join in the game. As the sun began to set, the park glowed in orange and pink hues. Lyra sat on the grass, exhausted but exhilarated. Humans, she realized, seemed to thrive on imperfection. They learned through trial and error, celebrated small victories, and shared experiences that could never be quantified. This was a type of intelligence her people had rarely explored, the intelligence of emotion, intuition, and connection. Later, she wandered toward the human dwellings. Lights flickered on inside the buildings, and through the windows, she saw families eating together, friends talking, and children drawing with colorful tools. Lyra felt a strange sensation she could not name, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and longing. Perhaps this was what humans meant when they said they felt alive. She found herself standing near a playground, watching a small group of children swing on the swings. One child fell and began to cry, and another quickly ran to comfort them, offering a hand and a kind word. Lyra's eyes widened. On Zareth Prime, accidents were met with immediate corrections or simulations, not empathy. The human response was slower, more uncertain, but richer in ways she was only beginning to understand. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Are you lost?" Lyra turned to see an adult human approaching. Their expression was gentle, patient, and curious. "No," she said, her voice careful. "I am observing." The human smiled. "That's okay, you can watch, or if you want, you can join." Lyra hesitated. Participation meant risk of failure, of misunderstanding, of embarrassment, but she felt a pull stronger than caution. She nodded. The human guided her through small activities, tossing balls, joining a simple song, and even trying a form of dance where the body followed the rhythm of clapping hands. Lyra's movements were awkward at first, but the humans around her were patient. They laughed when she spun the wrong way or clapped out of rhythm, but the laughter was light, never cruel. By the end, Lyra felt a sense of accomplishment and belonging she had never experienced on her structured station. As night fell, Lyra rose to leave, her wings catching the last rays of sunlight. She realized that in this world, learning was not just about data or efficiency. It was about connection, about shared experiences, about the joy and struggle of being together. Humans, she thought, had discovered a way to make life itself an art form. Before she returned to her temporary quarters, she paused and looked back at the settlement. The lights, the laughter, the movement, all of it seemed alive in a way she had only glimpsed in simulations. For the first time, Lyra understood that her mission to study humans would not just be about observation. It would be about participation, about discovery, about embracing the unknown with patience and curiosity. Her heart, or whatever organ humans would have called the source of feeling, fluttered with anticipation. Tomorrow she would explore more. She would ask more questions, try new things, and perhaps even make friends. The world of humans was vast, unpredictable, and chaotic. But in that chaos, Lyra saw the beauty of growth, joy, and understanding. With one last look at the glowing settlement, she whispered to herself, "I want to learn everything." The next morning, Lyra awoke to a soft golden light spilling through the translucent walls of her temporary quarters. She stretched her wings carefully, feeling the gentle pull in her muscles. Yesterday had been full of excitement and new discoveries, but today promised even more. She could sense it in the way the humans moved outside, the laughter, the chatter, the occasional musical note floating through the air. Lyra decided to explore further. Yesterday, she had only glimpsed the edges of the settlement, the streets near the park, and the playground. Today, she wanted to see more, the places where humans worked, learned, and created. She floated out of her quarters, her wings making soft ripples in the morning air. The streets were alive with movement. Humans of all ages hurried past, some carrying objects she could not yet identify, others walking slowly and talking to companions. The smells were different too: fresh bread from a small bakery, the earthy scent of plants growing in neatly arranged pots, and a hint of something sweet she guessed might be fruit. Each new scent, sound, and sight fascinated her. Lyra noticed a group of humans gathered near a wide, open building. Some were drawing shapes on large sheets of paper, others were arranging small, colorful blocks. Curiosity sparked. She drifted closer. One human looked up and noticed her hovering at the edge. "Hi," the human called. "Do you want to try?" Lyra tilted her head. "Try what?" The human gestured toward the blocks. "We're building designs. You can make anything you want." Lyra hesitated. In her culture, precision was everything. Making something without a clear plan could be considered careless. But these humans seemed to celebrate creativity over perfection. With careful movements, she touched a block and placed it on another. The human smiled. "Exactly, that's perfect." Lyra blinked. Perfect. She had only followed an impulse, not a plan, but the praise was sincere. Encouraged, she continued stacking, arranging, and reshaping. Soon, a small, colorful tower emerged. It was not straight nor symmetrical, but it had energy, life, and a rhythm that seemed to pulse with her own excitement. "See," the human said, "it doesn't have to be perfect, just yours." Lyra thought about this. On Zareth Prime, efficiency and precision were prized above all. Every creation was measured, every step calculated. Here, imperfection was not a flaw, it was part of the beauty. She smiled, a small warmth spreading through her chest. Later, a human approached holding a strange object. "Do you want to try painting?" they asked. Lyra looked at the brush, the vibrant colors, and the blank canvas. She had never worked with materials that could change shape and color so freely. Hesitant at first, she dipped a brush into a bright blue liquid and touched it to the canvas. The color spread unevenly, forming a shape she did not recognize. "It's wonderful," the human said. "It looks like a sky or maybe water or both." "What do you see?" Lyra studied the stroke. She did not know. "It feels like happiness," she said finally. The human nodded enthusiastically. "That's exactly it. That's the point." All around her, humans were creating in ways Lyra could not have imagined. Music floated from one corner, laughter from another, and the soft scratch of brushes against paper filled the air. She realized humans expressed themselves not just through words, but through movement, color, sound, and shared experience. It was a form of intelligence she was only beginning to comprehend. By midday, Lyra felt a hunger she had not anticipated. A human approached, holding a tray of small, colorful pieces of food. "Would you like to try?" they asked. Lyra examined the items carefully. They looked soft and fragrant. She reached out with a tentative finger and touched one. It was cool and slightly sticky. Encouraged by the human smile, she tasted it. The flavor was strange, sweet and tangy at the same time, unlike anything she had eaten on Zareth Prime. She blinked in surprise. The human laughed. "It's called fruit. Each one tastes different." Lyra tried another, then another. With each bite, she felt a small thrill of discovery. Food, she realized, was not just sustenance. It could be enjoyment, comfort, and even a way to connect with others. In the afternoon, Lyra wandered to a wide open space where humans were practicing a strange combination of movement and rhythm. Some called it dancing. The humans moved their bodies in ways she could barely imitate, yet each motion seemed full of emotion and intent. One human approached and held out a hand. "Do you want to try?" Lyra hesitated. Movement without structure could lead to imbalance or error, but something inside her urged her to participate. She took the hand. The human guided her through small steps at first, then allowed her to experiment. Her wings fluttered slightly to keep balance, and her body moved awkwardly at first. The humans around her laughed and cheered, not mockingly, but with encouragement. By the end of the session, Lyra felt exhilarated. Her body, her wings, her senses, all of them were alive in a way she had never experienced. Humans did not fear imperfection. They celebrated learning, trial, and expression. As evening approached, Lyra rested on a small hill overlooking the settlement. The sky turned shades of orange and pink, reflecting on the glass towers below. Humans walked past, some holding hands, some carrying food, some laughing at small jokes. The sense of community, of connection, was overwhelming. Lyra realized she had learned much in a single day. She had tried new things, failed, succeeded, laughed, and felt joy in ways she could not have predicted. The human's world was unpredictable, yet vibrant. It thrived not on control but on trust, creativity, and shared experience. A soft voice called her attention. It was the same adult who had guided her before. "You're learning quickly," they said kindly. "Humans can be strange and unpredictable, but if you pay attention, you start to understand how we connect." Lyra nodded. I think I am beginning to see," she said. "There is logic in your chaos and meaning in your mistakes." The human smiled. "Exactly. You don't have to understand everything at once. Just participate, experience. That is how we grow." Lyra's thoughts drifted as she watched the humans below. In her own culture, growth was measured, tracked, and reported. Here, growth was felt. It was in laughter, in creation, in connection. It was messy, uncertain, but far more alive than anything she had known. She decided to stay longer to continue learning. Tomorrow, she would visit the humans' learning centers, explore their traditions, and perhaps even begin to understand their stories and histories. There was a richness in their world that could not be quantified, an essence of life that her people rarely experienced. Before sleeping that night, Lyra made careful notes in her personal data recorder. But instead of recording only observations, she also recorded feelings: curiosity, joy, excitement, and even a small flicker of wonder she did not fully understand. Humans, she realized, did not just survive, they celebrated existence itself. As she closed her eyes, Lyra felt anticipation fluttering in her chest. The day had been full of discoveries, but tomorrow promised even more. She had learned that humans were patient, kind, and endlessly creative. They welcomed mistakes, celebrated effort, and found joy in small things. Their intelligence was not just in calculation or observation, it was in emotion, connection, and imagination. Lyra drifted into sleep with a soft smile. She imagined all the things she had yet to learn: music that made humans cry, stories that taught life lessons, games that challenged not just the body but the mind, rituals that celebrated community and friendship. There was so much to explore, and she wanted to experience every part of it. In the quiet of her quarters, she whispered to herself, "Tomorrow I will learn more. Tomorrow I will understand better. And maybe I will begin to belong here." The human world was unpredictable, full of strange customs and unexpected delight, but it was alive, vibrant, and utterly compelling. And Lyra, small and curious, was ready to dive even deeper. The morning sun spread golden light over the human settlement, and Lyra felt an excitement she had not known before. Today she would venture into the learning center, a large building she had noticed from afar. From the outside, it looked welcoming and alive. People moved in and out, carrying books, musical instruments, and strange tools she did not yet recognize. She hovered near the entrance, her violet eyes scanning every detail. A young human boy noticed her and waved. "Hey, you're Lyra, right? Want me to show you inside?" Lyra nodded eagerly. Humans were surprisingly approachable. The boy led her through wide hallways filled with bright colors and large windows. Light poured in, reflecting off polished floors and making the space seem larger than it really was. Humans of all ages worked at tables, some writing, some drawing, others carefully examining objects she could not name. "This is the learning center," the boy explained. "People come here to study anything they like. Science, art, music, even how to work together." Lyra's curiosity grew. "Work together?" she asked. "Yes," the boy said, smiling. "Humans do a lot of things in teams. We help each other, share ideas, and sometimes fail together too." They approached a table where a group of humans were constructing a small model of a building. Blocks, rods, and soft materials were carefully combined. The boy gestured for Lyra to join. She hesitated, but only for a moment. Carefully, she picked up a rod and attached it to the structure. Immediately, one of the humans praised her. "Good idea, that strengthens the tower." Lyra blinked. On Zarath Prime, her people rarely praised effort. Success was measured in perfection. Here, every small contribution mattered. She felt a spark of pride and continued adding pieces, experimenting with angles and connections. The humans around her smiled and offered guidance when necessary, never scolding, never taking over. After some time, the model was complete, a delicate, slightly uneven tower that still seemed strong and alive. Lyra stepped back and admired it. She felt a warmth in her chest she could not quite name. It was satisfaction, but more than that. It was connection. Next, they moved to a music room. Lyra had never heard humans create sound in this way. Instruments of all shapes and sizes lined the walls: strings, keys, drums, and wind instruments. One human picked up a small flute-like object and played a simple melody. The sound flowed smoothly, almost like a river, and Lyra felt a strange excitement. "Do you want to try?" the boy asked. Lyra hesitated. Producing sound with her own body was not difficult. Her species communicated in tones and vibrations, but controlling an instrument that was designed for humans seemed impossible. Still, she wanted to try. Carefully, she held the flute. At first, only squeaks emerged. The humans laughed, but softly, warmly, as if encouragement mattered more than success. She tried again and again, listening to the boy's guidance, adjusting her breath and finger placement. Slowly, a clear note emerged. Lyra felt a thrill ripple through her wings. The note was imperfect, but it carried intention and effort. The humans clapped, and she realized they celebrated not just skill, but the act of trying. Music, she thought, was another language, one that expressed feeling, not logic. Humans did not only think, they felt, and they shared that feeling in ways that could reach anyone willing to listen. By midday, Lyra's hunger reminded her to eat. Today, she wanted to try something new. The boy led her to a kitchen where humans were preparing food together. Lyra watched closely as they chopped vegetables, kneaded dough, and mixed ingredients. She asked questions, curious about each step. The humans answered eagerly, explaining why they added certain spices, why some ingredients had to be cooked longer, and why sharing food was part of their culture. "Food is not just for eating," the boy explained. "It's for sharing, celebrating, and showing care for each other." Lyra helped stir a large pot of soup, her movements careful. The humans guided her, praising her effort. When the soup was ready, they sat together and ate. The flavors were new, spicy, sweet, and savory all at once, but comforting in a way that surprised her. Humans laughed while eating, sharing stories and making small jokes. Lyra realized that meals were not just about nutrition. They were a ritual, a way to connect, and an expression of community. After lunch, they went outside for a human custom called Story Hour. Humans gathered in a circle, some sitting, some standing, as one person began to speak. Lyra listened carefully. The human told a story of adventure, of challenges and friendship, of mistakes and courage. She noticed something remarkable. The listeners reacted not just with understanding but with emotion. Some laughed, others gasped, and some leaned forward, eyes wide. "What are you feeling?" Lyra asked the boy quietly. Everything, he said with a smile. Stories make us think, imagine, and feel. We learn from them and we also share what it means to be human. Lyra tried to imagine. In her own culture, lessons were taught directly, with clear instructions. Here, learning came from feeling, from empathy, from seeing oneself in another's story. It was messy, unpredictable, and brilliant. She found herself smiling, turning the words over in her mind, feeling a connection not just to the story, but to the humans telling it. Later, she explored a quiet library filled with books of all sizes. The pages smelled faintly of paper and ink, and the words were strange symbols she had not fully learned. Yet the humans reading seemed completely absorbed. One human noticed her curiosity. "Would you like me to read to you?" Lyra nodded eagerly. The human chose a book filled with simple drawings and letters. As the story unfolded, Lyra realized that humans shared knowledge and imagination in many forms. Even when the words were unfamiliar, she could sense the meaning, the intention, and the care in their expression. By evening, Lyra felt a new type of tiredness, not exhaustion but fulfillment. She had learned about building, music, cooking, storytelling, and reading. She had experienced collaboration, encouragement, and empathy. Each activity, though simple, revealed layers of human complexity she could not have imagined. She hovered quietly near the edge of the settlement, watching humans return to their homes, chatting with neighbors, or carrying small gifts to friends. She reflected on the day's experiences. Humans, she realized, thrived on connection, on sharing, on emotion. Their intelligence was not only measured by logic or memory, but by the ability to relate, to create, and to grow together. Lyra thought about her own people on Zareth Prime. They measured intelligence by efficiency, precision, and achievement. Humans measured intelligence differently. They valued curiosity, creativity, and the courage to try even when the outcome was uncertain. In this world, mistakes were celebrated as part of learning. Effort was as important as success. Connection was as vital as knowledge. She considered the many new experiences of the day, the joy of building, the thrill of creating music, the comfort of shared food, the depth of stories, and the warmth of attention. Each experience taught her not just about humans, but about herself. She realized that learning, living, and growing could be joyful, even in uncertainty. Before returning to her quarters, Lyra paused to observe the night sky. Stars stretched across the horizon, distant and quiet. Yet below, the settlement glowed with light, laughter, and life. Humans had created something extraordinary, a society that thrived not on fear or control, but on trust, care, and shared joy. Lyra smiled softly. Tomorrow, she decided, she would explore human traditions, their games, and perhaps even meet more friends. She wanted to experience festivals, music celebrations, and the rituals humans cherished. She wanted to understand why laughter mattered, why stories inspired, and why sharing made life meaningful. As she returned to her quarters, Lyra whispered to herself, "Humans are strange, unpredictable, and beautiful. I want to understand it all." Her wings glimmered faintly in the moonlight as she settled in for sleep. She imagined the days ahead, each one a new adventure in learning, experiencing, and connecting. In this human world, she was a student, an observer, and a participant all at once. Lyra felt a small thrill of anticipation. She had begun to understand that learning from humans was not just about observing facts or behaviors. It was about immersion, about openness, and about embracing experiences fully. Every smile, every story, every shared meal or song was a lesson in the richness of life. With that thought, Lyra closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more challenges, and more chances to understand the humans who had already begun to touch her heart in ways she could not yet name. She had learned to see, to listen, and to participate. The journey ahead promised even more, and she was ready. Lyra woke early, sunlight spilling through the translucent walls of her quarters. Today felt different. There was a buzz in the air, a sense of anticipation that made her wings twitch with excitement. From the windows, she could see humans preparing decorations in the streets. Bright ribbons were hung across poles, colorful lanterns swung gently in the breeze, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. Lyra had seen some small celebrations before, but nothing on this scale. Today, she would experience a human festival. She arrived at the heart of the settlement, where a large crowd was already gathering. Humans of all ages moved together with energy and purpose, laughing, talking, and helping each other. Small booths offered food, games, and crafts. Music floated through the air, a combination of drums, strings, and wind instruments that made Lyra's heart beat faster. She felt a thrill of anticipation. This was not a lesson in theory. This was life, alive, unpredictable, and beautiful. A familiar voice called her name. It was the boy who had guided her through the learning center. "Lyra, you made it. Come see this." He led her to a large area where humans were preparing a game. Small wooden discs were placed on a flat surface, and the goal seemed to be to move them into certain positions using sticks. Humans laughed as discs skidded and bumped into each other. "It's called shuffleboard," the boy explained. "It's about skill, patience, and fun." Lyra hesitated. Her first instinct was caution. She could easily misjudge the force needed and fail, but the humans around her were smiling and encouraging. Carefully, she picked up a stick and nudged a disc. It glided across the surface, stopping close to the target. A cheer rose around her. She tried again and again, improving with each turn. Even when she missed, the humans laughed, not mockingly but warmly, celebrating the attempt. Lyra realized that the act of trying, of participating, was as important as succeeding. After the game, she wandered through the festival, watching humans cook, sing, and dance. Some were teaching children to weave colorful ribbons, others were performing music, and a few were telling stories to groups gathered on blankets. Lyra marveled at the energy and the joy that radiated from every corner. Humans did not simply live, they celebrated living. She approached a small booth where humans were decorating edible treats. A young girl held out a small pastry. "Do you want to try?" she asked. Lyra looked carefully. The pastry was soft and sweet, covered in colorful icing. She took it cautiously, examining its shape, texture, and smell. The girl guided her hands as Lyra applied the icing, creating patterns she had never imagined. When she was finished, the girl clapped. "It looks amazing. You have a good touch." Lyra blinked. Praise again for creativity rather than perfection. Her wings fluttered slightly with pride. The humans' approach to life was astonishing. They valued effort, imagination, and participation above rigid rules. Every interaction was a chance to connect, learn, and grow. As the afternoon passed, Lyra noticed a group gathering near a wide open space. Humans were preparing a large structure made of ropes and poles. Curious, she floated closer. A human noticed her and waved. "Do you want to try climbing?" Lyra hesitated. Climbing required balance, strength, and courage. But she could feel the energy around her. Humans supporting each other, encouraging one another, sharing laughter and reassurance. Slowly, she approached. Hands gripping the rope carefully, she began to climb. At first, her movements were awkward, her wings flaring slightly to maintain balance. One human guided her from below, offering tips and encouragement. Higher and higher she climbed, feeling the wind against her wings and the warmth of the sun on her skin. When she reached the top, she looked down at the festival below. The view was breathtaking. Humans below cheered for her, and she realized she had never felt such a combination of fear, joy, and accomplishment. It was not simply about reaching the top. It was about the experience, the support, and the shared celebration. After descending carefully, Lyra explored the music area of the festival. Humans played instruments, sang in groups, and clapped to keep rhythm. A small circle of children danced, their movements full of energy and spontaneity. Lyra hesitated at first but then stepped into the circle. At first, her steps were awkward, her wings brushing against others. The humans around her laughed softly, guiding her movements. Slowly, she began to move with the rhythm, spinning, twirling, and leaping. She felt joy in motion, in synchronization, and in the shared excitement of the group. As the sun began to set, humans lit lanterns and released them into the sky. Lyra watched, her eyes wide, as hundreds of small lights floated upward, glowing gently against the deepening blue. She realized that humans celebrated in ways that transcended logic. They created beauty, joy, and shared wonder simply for the sake of experiencing it together. She felt a warmth she had never known, a connection to these humans who thrived on emotion, creativity, and community. Later, a human approached her with a small instrument. "Do you want to try playing with us?" Lyra examined the instrument, a small drum. She tapped lightly, feeling the vibrations resonate through her wings. The humans around her clapped in rhythm, and soon she was part of the group, creating sound, sharing energy, and participating fully. Every note, every beat, every clap was a lesson in collaboration, patience, and expression. Night fell and the festival began to quiet. Humans sat together in small groups, talking softly, sharing food, or simply watching the stars. Lyra floated quietly near the edge, absorbing everything she had seen. She had learned so much today, not just about games, music, or food, but about the human way of living. Life was celebrated in action, in connection, in the willingness to try, fail, and try again. She reflected on her experiences. The games had taught her patience and focus. The climbing had taught her courage. The music had taught her cooperation, and the food had taught her care and sharing. Humans, she realized, were masters of balancing challenge and joy, learning and celebration, individuality and community. A familiar voice spoke beside her. "Did you enjoy today?" the boy asked. Lyra nodded. "More than I can describe. I see how humans live fully together and with joy. There is learning in every action and celebration in every effort." The boy smiled. "That's right. Humans don't just exist, they celebrate, create, and connect. That's what makes life meaningful." Lyra watched the humans around her, seeing small acts of kindness, laughter, and care. One human helped another pick up a dropped item. A group shared food with children nearby. Friends guided each other in small dances, laughing when mistakes were made. Lyra realized that human intelligence was not only in problem-solving or memory. It was in empathy, connection, and the courage to participate fully. Before returning to her quarters, Lyra paused near a fountain where the water glowed faintly under lantern light. She reflected on her journey so far. She had arrived curious and cautious, observing humans from a distance. Now she was part of their world, learning, participating, and feeling in ways she had never known. Humans had taught her that life was more than efficiency and precision. Life was experience, connection, creativity, and joy. As she returned home, she noticed small groups of humans tidying up after the festival, laughing together as they worked. Lyra understood that community was not only about celebration, but about shared responsibility. The joy of life was intertwined with care for others, with helping, sharing, and participating fully. That night, Lyra settled in her quarters, her wings tingling with excitement and energy. She reviewed her day in her mind, replaying every laugh, every song, every shared meal and game. She felt something new, a deep sense of belonging, a quiet but profound connection to the humans she had met. She whispered to herself, "I want to learn more. I want to understand everything about their world, their feelings, and their way of living." Lyra drifted into sleep with a sense of wonder. The festival had shown her the depth of human joy, creativity, courage, and connection. She realized that learning about humans was not only about observation, it was about immersion, participation, and sharing experiences fully. Each day promised more lessons, more discoveries, and more opportunities to connect. In her dreams, she imagined the next festival, the next game, the next song. She imagined humans teaching her, guiding her, and laughing with her. She imagined herself part of a world that thrived not on control, but on participation, empathy, and shared joy. Lyra's wings shimmered softly in the moonlight as she slept, a small smile on her face. She had begun to understand the human way, not just how they survived, but how they lived, celebrated, and connected. Tomorrow, she thought, would bring new challenges, new joys, and new lessons. She was ready to embrace them all. The next morning, Lyra awoke with a flutter of excitement in her wings. Today, she felt different, not just curious but confident. She had explored the human settlement, learned about games, music, food, storytelling, and festivals. She had laughed, played, and shared moments with humans who had welcomed her warmly. But today, she wanted to challenge herself. She wanted to truly participate in human life, to test what she had learned, and to see if she could contribute in a meaningful way. She left her quarters and made her way to the center of the settlement. Humans were already gathering, smiling and chatting as they prepared for the day's activities. Some were practicing songs for a small concert, others were arranging games, and a few were preparing a communal meal. Lyra felt a thrill today. She would not just observe or follow instructions, she would take initiative. The boy who had guided her through the learning center appeared, waving. "Good morning, Lyra. Ready for today?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, I want to help. I want to participate fully." He smiled. "That's the spirit. Let's start with the preparations for the feast. There's a lot to do, and we can use all the help we can get." Lyra followed him to a large hall where humans were arranging tables, cooking, and setting out decorations. She observed first, noticing how humans worked together. Some carried heavy items, others coordinated small details, and everyone communicated clearly but kindly. Lyra realized that even simple tasks required awareness, patience, and cooperation. Without hesitation, she offered to help carry a large basket of fruit. Humans watched with surprise but nodded, showing her the best way to balance the load. Lyra adjusted her wings and arms carefully, carrying the basket across the hall. She felt a small thrill of accomplishment, the first time she had contributed something meaningful without guidance. Next, she helped prepare a large bowl of salad. She chopped vegetables with careful precision, following the human's instructions while also experimenting with small variations. When she finished, the humans tasted the mixture and smiled. "You added a nice touch," one said. Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. Contribution, she realized, was more than action. It was creativity, effort, and thoughtfulness combined. After preparing food, Lyra moved to assist with decorations. Humans were weaving ribbons across poles and hanging lanterns from beams. At first, she struggled with the knots and angles, but the humans encouraged her gently. "Try from the other side," one suggested. "You're learning fast." Lyra adjusted her technique and soon mastered the task. The hall began to glow with color and light, and she felt pride in her work. By midday, the hall was filled with humans ready to celebrate. Music began, instruments played, and voices sang in harmony. Children ran around with games and laughter. Adults exchanged greetings, and the smell of cooked food filled the air. Lyra stepped back, observing the energy and joy of the room. She realized that the human strength lay not only in their intelligence but in their ability to create shared experiences filled with meaning. The boy approached her again. "Want to perform with us?" he asked, holding a small drum. Lyra's heart fluttered. Performing in front of so many humans was daunting, but she remembered what she had learned. Humans valued effort, participation, and connection more than perfection. She nodded. Carefully, she took the drum and followed the rhythm. At first, her timing was slightly off, but the humans adjusted with her, guiding her gently and encouraging each beat. Soon, her movements synchronized with theirs, and the sound became a part of the music. She felt exhilarated, not just from the sound but from the shared energy of the group. After the performance, Lyra joined the children for games outside. Humans ran, jumped, and laughed, teaching her games she had never seen before. She learned quickly, experimenting with strategy and movement. When she stumbled, humans helped her up with smiles. When she succeeded, they celebrated warmly. She realized that play was not only fun, it was a way to learn, to connect, and to build trust. Later, the humans gathered for storytelling. A storyteller spoke of adventures, courage, and cleverness. Lyra listened intently, recognizing patterns and lessons she had not noticed before. The humans laughed at humor, gasped at tension, and cheered at triumph. Lyra felt a deep connection, not just to the story but to the emotions surrounding it. Humans, she realized, expressed wisdom not only through facts but through shared experiences and imagination. As the sun began to set, the festival reached its peak. Lanterns glowed softly, music played, and humans danced in circles, holding hands, spinning, and laughing. Lyra joined them, her wings catching the light, her movements awkward at first but improving with each step. Humans cheered, encouraging her to spin faster, reach higher, and enjoy the moment. She felt joy and belonging she had never known before. When the festival ended, Lyra floated quietly near the edge of the settlement, watching humans clean, organize, and reflect on the day. She observed small acts of care, one human helping another carry a heavy item, another consoling a child who had fallen, a group sharing leftover food with friends nearby. Lyra realized that celebration was only part of the human way. Their strength came from kindness, empathy, and willingness to participate fully in the lives of others. The boy approached again. "You've learned a lot since you arrived," he said gently. "You see how humans live, learn, and celebrate. Do you feel like part of it now?" Lyra paused. She thought about her journey, from cautious observer to participant, from hesitant learner to confident contributor. She thought about the laughter, music, games, stories, meals, and shared experiences that had shaped her days. "Yes," she said finally. "I feel part of it. I understand that life is more than observation or efficiency. It is connection, joy, and participation." The boy smiled. "Exactly, that's the human way. You've done well." Lyra felt a warmth she had never felt on Zareth Prime. Here, intelligence was not measured by knowledge alone, but by creativity, empathy, and courage to participate. Humans had taught her that growth was not only personal but shared, that mistakes were part of learning, and that joy could be found in the smallest moments. Later that night, Lyra returned to her quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. She reviewed the day's experiences in her mind, replaying every laugh, every shared meal, every beat of music, every successful game, and every small act of kindness. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a quiet but profound understanding of human life. She reflected on her first days in the human settlement. She had arrived curious and cautious, expecting to observe and study. Instead, she had been welcomed, guided, and included. She had learned not only about human skills and customs, but also about values, kindness, creativity, courage, and connection. Humans lived not only to survive, but to experience, celebrate, and grow together. Lyra realized that her mission had changed. She had come to learn about humans from a distance, to study their behaviors scientifically. But now she understood that to truly learn, she had to participate, to connect, and to experience life alongside them. Observation alone was not enough. Participation, effort, and shared experience revealed the depth and richness of human intelligence and culture. She thought about the festivals, the games, the meals, the music, and the stories. She thought about the humans who had laughed with her, guided her, and celebrated her efforts. Each interaction had been a lesson, each experience a revelation. She felt gratitude, curiosity, and a growing sense of belonging. Before sleeping, Lyra looked out at the settlement one last time. Lanterns glowed softly in the night, humans moved through the streets in small groups, and laughter and conversation filled the air. She felt a connection to this place and its people, a connection she had never anticipated but now cherished deeply. She whispered to herself, "I have learned so much, yet there is more to see, more to understand. I want to continue learning, sharing, and growing. I want to be part of this world, to contribute, and to celebrate life alongside them." Lyra's wings shimmered softly in the moonlight as she settled into her resting space. She thought about tomorrow, imagining new activities, new lessons, and new moments of connection. She felt a sense of purpose and joy, a realization that learning, participation, and empathy were as important as knowledge itself. Her thoughts drifted to the humans she had met, the boy who guided her, the children who laughed with her, the adults who taught her, and all the unseen people in the settlement. They had shared their world, their customs, and their joy. In return, Lyra had shared herself, her curiosity, and her willingness to learn. Together, they had created something greater than any single effort: community, understanding, and mutual respect. As sleep finally claimed her, Lyra smiled softly, knowing that her journey had only just begun. The human world was vast, vibrant, and full of surprises. Each day promised new lessons, new friendships, and new opportunities to connect, create, and celebrate. She had learned the essence of humanity, not in theory, but in practice, in laughter, in music, in shared meals, in games, and in simple acts of kindness. Lyra's first journey into human life had taught her more than any data or simulation ever could. She understood now that intelligence was not only in observation or calculation, but in curiosity, creativity, empathy, and participation. Humans had shown her a way of living that was full of unpredictability, beauty, and shared joy. And as she drifted into dreams filled with music, stories, laughter, and light, Lyra knew that she had found a place where she belonged, a place where learning, growth, and connection were limitless, and where life was celebrated in every small, wonderful way.